It's an absolute pleasure to be here. So, whenever you're a part of a symposium, you wonder why they order certain speakers, and I think I know why I'm at the end of this block. I may be able to maybe summarize what's been said, and hopefully the theme is not lost and not stale at this point, but many of the themes are going to reemerge. So I'm going to talk about play and fighting, but mostly the playground in between, play fighting. In doing so, I am going to explain how this form of play can contribute to the development and the preservation of cognitive functioning. And this may sound counterintuitive to some people that are not informed, but this is something that truly a passion of mine. I am a behavioral scientist who designs interventions aimed at enhancing cognitive functioning, or our ability to think and process information. And and on this other hand, I'm suggesting to you that a form of fighting, a known source of cognitive impairment, may also enhance cognitive functioning. But let's be clear. Play fighting is a form of symbolic play that involves no intention to harm. And the risk of injury, whether you prefer to play with toy swords or play sports, there's no difference. Interestingly, when you train martial artists use the phrase, "let's train with intent," because they want to understand their actions and to understand their implications. Yeah. So, play fighting goes by many names. Superhero play, bad guy play, rough and tumble and big body play. I prefer the term play fighting. Play fighting, it has two defining attributes. It is both physically active and it is pretend. And this is truly important. Kids are not getting enough physical activity in their day. They are mostly playing video games, almost an hour every day. And many of them believe that the video games that they're playing actually enhance cognitive functioning. Pew Research suggested that 38% of gamers believe that it's enhancing their problem-solving skills and their attention. Unfortunately, that's not the case. A meta-analysis has shown that video games across a number of cognitive skills actually show negligible results. However, this study and other studies have shown that there's a certain type of game that may enhance cognition. I'll let you think about what that is. So first-person shooters and motion-controlled exer games, usually involving play fighting. They enhance what we've heard before is spatial cognition. Now, I'm a fan of video games. I've been researching them for about 10 years now. That's my daughter in my living room, hogging my Xbox. And recently, a study came out that toddlers randomized to play Fruit Ninja versus, coloring on a tablet. They were asked to do this for 15-minute sessions, 4 times a week for 3 weeks. And at the end of this program, they ended up performing better than the coloring condition on a task of abstract reasoning, or Raven's matrices. But people, we need to put our digital devices down. They interfere with our ability to remember and to learn. E-books, laptop computers when you're note-taking, smartphone cameras, and GPS devices. They interfere with our ability to navigate. And they're also interfering with our physical activity. It's pretty troubling to know that there are only 8 states that require require recess for kids. And more troubling is that there's only 2 places, Oregon and the District of Columbia, that require weekly physical education at both the elementary and the middle school levels. And adults' levels of physical activity are abysmal at about 20% meeting physical activity recommendations. Physical activity is absolutely essential. It cultivates cognitive development by enriching the brain with the stimulation and the nutrients that it needs to make and maintain efficient connections across the lifespan. It cultivates our motor skills, our fine and our gross motor skills, which underlie our academic readiness and our scholastic achievement, our cognitive control. Interestingly, our need for movement as we age shifts, and our needs for certain movements shifts as well. When we are young, we lift our head up, we learn to stand and walk and explore our world. And we need movement to survive and thrive. And as we age, our mobility starts to decline. And that actually signifies that our cognitive skills are starting to decline. Researchers at the University of Illinois have started to assess the best ways of actually falling without having severe impact and how to absorb the force. And the best way to do that is a position that we held very long in the womb. And you might learn it on the first day of judo. It's the tuck and roll. There is now undeniable evidence that physical activity can change the brain. But we've all been in a battle since the age of 18 to fight cognitive aging. This is, sorry. I'm losing battery from my brain camera right now. We're losing, we're mostly leaking our fluid abilities, but our memory for history, facts, and figures remains intact. Our natural age-related changes are usually imperceptible because our bodies offer us compensatory gains to recover from our losses. But we all have the ability to recharge and regain a lot of those connections through movements. Physical activity has shown, structural and functional changes in the brain. It does so through changes in cerebral blood flow, electrocortical activity. It increases network connectivity, and it changes volumetric changes in the brain, the white matter that surrounds it and the gray matter within. And it selectively targets places that enhance our memory, like in the hippocampus. I believe we need to start targeting and promoting physical activities that encourage a greater cognitive resilience and encourage motor skills that can enhance memory in these areas. Man, don't get sick before a symposium. So just as children must learn to cut with care when using sharp objects, how to climb while being cognizant of their grips and their footholds, and how to slide and being mindful of their environment and their surroundings. Children can be taught to self-regulate and taught how to play fight safely. Play fighting targets 3 fundamental movements: locomotor movements like running and jumping, object control like throwing, catching, kicking, and striking, as well as stability control like balancing on one leg. And we first master the manipulation of objects to communicate, right? And we use movement to then later increase our understanding of abstract ideas and to problem solve. And we do that, with mental representation, and we rotate ideas, and it helps us plan. Now, returning to the other defining attribute of play fighting, it is pretend, it is imitation, it's make-believe. It's voluntary behavior that's choreographed, it's enjoyable, and it's done with caution and care. And it's through symbolic play that children learn to regulate socio-emotional skills like reading facial cues and understanding their actions and their reactions. And humans need this experience to fully learn how to self-regulate. And they need it for academic readiness, scholastic achievement, but also cognitive control throughout life. Cognitive motor activity is enhanced through play fighting, and by targeting those very same skills, it may facilitate brain plasticity supporting all of these areas. And that's because there's a lot of back and forth turn-taking and role-playing and continual effortful cognitive engagement. For some kids and adults, the best way to do that, to scaffold these skills, is through martial arts academy, because the environment is a bit more controllable than on the schoolyard. Also, most of the scientific literature happens to be done in those more traditional settings. There's now growing evidence that martial arts training, be it karate, taekwondo, tai chi, and Greco-Roman wrestling, is similar and often superior to aerobic fitness training in terms of enhancing inhibition control, attention, and visual tracking. In fact, the volume of gray brain matter in judo athletes is comparable to endurance athletes, with the exception of the hippocampus, which is not surprising because the hippocampus is located right near the ventricles, where a lot of the oxygen-rich blood pours out. And if you're engaged in aerobic activity, that blood is going to be coming out at a faster, more regular rate, higher volumes. So that, in theory, provides more access to the nutrients that the brain needs, like brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF. Now, BDNF seems to be present in these athletes in almost a pecking order, where martial artists or taekwondo athletes have more so than boxers, who have more than aerobic athletes, who have more than inactive adults. But I should point out, too, that the cognitive benefits of martial arts have both direct and indirect effects on cognitive health through mental well-being. Martial artists have shown reductions in anxiety, and as you increase physical skills, you increase perceptions of physical competence, and that can lead to greater perceptions of self-esteem. When you have greater self-esteem, you're more likely to try new things. You're going to enjoy physical activity, and you might just stick with it. 50% of adults drop out of exercise programs within the first 6 months. And one study showed that 98% of fitness club members abandoned their gym membership after just a year. So if you learn nothing else from this talk, please find an activity that you love, that you enjoy, that's meaningful to you. Play fighting also appears to serve an evolutionary purpose, serves as a form of socialization through species and across cultures. Supporting this is a seminal study where rats were reared in groups and they were separated. The group that was separated didn't learn the play fighting and the social cues, and then they were reintroduced to the other rats, and they couldn't calibrate the other rats' movements. When socially isolated and unable to do that, then they became more socially aggressive. This has been shown when primates and kids are paired with more dominant parents. They learn boundaries of competence, whereas if you are paired with a non-dominant parent, you do not learn these. I think it was also brought up that aggression has been studied, and a study last year came out and they synthesized the effects of 9 martial arts programs: Aikido, Taekwondo, karate, and the effect of the martial art did not matter, but all of them had a reduction in aggression. So, play fighting, it's not just a child's game. This is my colleague, Dr. Will Massey's at Oregon State University. I happen to be playing with authentic weapons brought back from African Zulu warrior tribe. In their tribe, they use stick fighting to teach boys social restraint. We're just having a good old time writing papers and beating each other up. Now, I was first introduced to stick fighting here at UCLA in 2014. There was a brilliant demo of Filipino martial arts by Paul McCarthy and others in this room. Having studied exergaming and looking at the movements, I probably shouldn't have been surprised to see some of the parallels there, because martial artists are used in the motion capture and in the design of exergames. But after years of tennis and weight training, I have been searching for something new, exciting, cognitively challenging. And I found it in martial arts. I immediately flew home. I enrolled in a martial arts academy that taught Kali, JKD, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I joined my colleague, Dr. Massey, who had already been training in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and publishing his ethnographies and his perspective on how it was enhancing self-regulation. As behavioral scientists, we must immerse ourselves in everything that we do before we ask others to do it. So here I am. I'm immersing myself in martial arts. And I practice what I preach, and I encourage my daughter to get involved. I've had her involved in capoeira, judo. We wrestle, we stick fight, we pillow fight. We do takedowns on the bed. Sorry, honey. My message to you is a simple one. Early experience is so important to children. You have to have positive experiences, and the best predictor of later physical activity is to have a positive experience early in youth. While participation statistics are dropping in contact sports like football because of the known risk of cognitive impairment, there is no greater risk in non-competitive martial arts training. You may be surprised to know that cheerleading actually shows the greatest possibility of catastrophic injury. So I encourage you to play fight, and to play fight safely with courage. It's time to unlock everyone's superhero powers by facilitating more play fighting in today's world. If you're a teacher or a parent, go get some mats, put some pillows and Nerf swords in the corner. My dad did this with me with paper towel rolls. He's an untrained wrestler. He used to pin me down in the den and force me to find ways of escape. And this taught me lots of things. For one, it was to embody the fighting spirit. And resilience of mind and body. So with improving physical and cognitive skills, maybe we can just reduce some of the unnecessary, serious, and toxic forms of fighting in pockets all over the world. All right, it's time for me to roll.